Okay, class, today we're going to be looking at writing function rules. This is just like writing equations. We've really done a lot of this. It's just that now we're going to call them functions rather than just equations. So example 1, we're going to be given a chart and we have to write a function for the table. Now, the output on the charts, when you're looking at the charts, the output will always be on your right, okay? And then the input value will always be on your left. And you can always remember that your output value is going to be by itself on the left-hand side of the equal sign. So you can go ahead and do f of x equals, and then we know that on the right side we're going to have something to do with x. So we need to find out what has to happen to the x to become f of x. So look at the pattern. We have 1 to get to 5, 2 to get to 6, 3 to get to 7, 4 to get to 8. The common pattern for getting from x to f of x looks like we're adding 4. Let's just check. 1 plus 4 gives you 5. 2 plus 4 gives you 6. 3 plus 4 gives you 7. 4 plus 4 gives you 8. It works for all of them. So we call that 4 times x. That will give you your output. So you take whatever is on the x side and you multiply it by 4 to get f of x. All right, let's look at b. For b, we have 1 getting to 1, 3 to 9, 6 to 36, 9 to 81. We got to figure out what's the commonality. We know that the right side variable is going to be by itself on the left side of the equal sign. So we have f of x equals f of x equals, and then we have to figure out what's happening to the x to get to f of x. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not, but the pattern, if you notice, is 1 squared gives you 1, 3 squared gives you 9, 6 squared gives you 36, and 9 squared gives you 81. Therefore, to get f of x, we have to take x and square it. So the function here would be f of x equals x to the second power, or x squared. And so that's the function for that chart. So the key thing is to go ahead and write your variable that's on the right column. Go ahead and write it down and then put in equals and then talk about what happens. Try to figure out what happens to x to become f of x. And then you can write your rule. Okay, now sometimes we have to write a function given a word problem. Okay, so the word problem here, we have a carpenter buys finishing nails by the pound. Each pound of nails costs $1.19. Write a function rule to describe this relationship. Okay, so that's the first part of the question. So we need to figure out what our unknowns are. We know how much the nails cost per pound. We know how much they cost per pound. What we don't know is how many pounds are purchased and what the cost of purchasing those nails is. So those are two things. So you're on all of these function rules, you're going to have two variables. You're going to have your output and your input. So we need to think about, or dependent variable, independent variable. Well, if you're thinking about the cost of nails, the cost is going to depend on how many pounds of nails you purchase. So your dependent variable, and again, that's always the one that's on the left side by itself. That's your output value, your dependent variable. So the two things that we have are cost and number of pounds purchased. So cost would be that dependent variable. We need to create a variable for that. We'll just call it C for cost. So C is going to equal your cost. All right, and then we have pounds, number of pounds. We can use P or N or whatever variable you want to use. We'll just call that pounds, P for pounds. And then the dependent variable is always going to be by itself on the left side of the equal sign. So if you can figure out what your dependent variable is, which in this case would be cost, because cost does depend on how many pounds of nails you purchase. So we're going to have C equals what? And then we have to figure out what do we have to do to P to get C. Well, P is number of pounds purchased, and it tells us that each pound of nails is $1.19. So what we need to do then is multiply the number of pounds by $1.19. So we have $1.19 times P. All right, and then it asks us how much do 12 pounds of finishing nails cost. So then what you would just do is you'd plug 12 right in here for P, and we would get $1.19 times 12. And that will give us the cost. So I'm going to calculate that real quick. We have $1.19 times 12. Okay, so that will give us $14.28. So the cost then, if you buy 12 pounds of finishing nails, is going to be $14.28. And how the function works is we could take any pound, any number of pounds of nails. That's supposed to be a $sign. Okay, we can take any number of pounds of nails and plug it in for P to get our cost. All right, so let's go ahead and look at example 3. It says try one on your own. So if you, a recommendation is that you pause the video and see if you can't figure this one out by yourself, and then replay it and see if you were able to get the right answer. So go ahead, and if you want to try this one on your own, go ahead and pause the video at this time. Okay, so now we're going to look at this and see if you were able to figure this out. The choir spent $100 producing audio tapes of its last performance and will sell the tapes for $5.50 each. Write a rule to describe the choir's profit as a function of the number of tapes sold. Okay, so we need to figure out profit. Now, profit, what you do, to get profit, you take how much your expenses, or how much you made, how much you bring in, and then you subtract away your expenses. So if the choir spent $100 producing audio tapes, that's an expense. Okay, that was an expense. But they bring in $5.50 for each tape that they sell. So we don't know how many number of tapes they're going to sell. So that's going to be a variable. Okay, so we'll just do in. And actually, I think I'm just going to type in the answer here. I think you guys will be able to read that a little bit better. Okay, so if I just type this in here, we do, we'll just call N equals number of tapes sold, okay? Now, it asks us, this bottom question will tell you what your variables need to be. Write a rule to describe the choir's profit as a function of the number of tapes sold. If you see the word as a function of, okay, the words before it will be a variable, profit, and then the words after it will be number of tapes sold. So we'll do just P for profit. P equals profit. And profit, and you've probably worked with profit a little bit in HOPS last year, but profit is going to equal your revenue, which is how much money you bring in, minus your cost or expenses. So to figure out the group's profit, we have P for profit. P equals, all right, revenue. Now, we're going to bring in $5.50 for each tape we sell. So if N is the number of tapes, we can multiply 550 times N for number of tapes, and then we're going to subtract from that the expenses. The expenses the choir spent, it says $100, so $100. So this right here would be your equation. So if you didn't know too much about profit, that might have been a little more difficult to work with. But that's how profit works. So you take, I'm sorry, I messed up the highlighting there. Let me fix that. Okay. So this right here is our equation. Right there. So this is just pretty much like what we've been doing in algebra, but now we actually call them functions. So we will practice this tomorrow in class, and I thank you for your attention.